Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be part 2 about why religion is superior to science. So if you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch part 1. This is going to be a little bit of a elaboration on that. And I'm going to be talking specifically about hierarchies. So when people hear the word hierarchy, a lot of people think of things like the patriarchy, or they think about how all the billionaires are at the top of the hierarchy and everybody else is at the bottom and they have basically nothing. And so hierarchies have this kind of bad rep. And so a lot of people, particularly the left, the liberal part of the political spectrum, want to sort of get rid of hierarchies. Think bad hierarchies are a bad thing. However, as Jordan Peterson has pointed out, I'm going to be talking a lot about a lot of things that Jordan Peterson said, so I want to give him credit. He actually has pointed out that, hierarchies are, first of all, billions of years old. That's why he compares humans to lobsters, and people think it's a terrible comparison, but the point that he's trying to make is that, look, we have this system inside of us that responds to a hierarchy within our species. And this thing is so old that the same medication that works on that system in humans works in lobsters. Okay? And lobsters are older than trees, by the way. Okay, we're talking about billions and billions of years. So this is something that's not, this is not new. This is not a result of capitalism. Okay? This is billions and billions and billions of years older than capitalism. It's billions of years older than human beings. It's billions of years older than primates. So this idea of a hierarchy about a few people at the top of the pyramid, and then a few more people in the middle, and then the most people at the bottom. That is something that's a law of nature. That's something that, as soon as animals evolved, they started organizing themselves into hierarchies. So why do we need these hierarchies? Well, first of all, you need a hierarchy to even move. For example, I'm sitting here. Now let's say that I want to get a glass of water. Well, in order to do that, I have to get up and walk over to the fridge and pour myself a glass of water. The problem with that is that that's not free. That costs energy. Now, in modern society, I don't really have to worry about running out of energy because I've got up too many times to get a glass of water. But it's still a concern evolutionarily, the use of energy. And so there's a part of me that's kind of lazy, that's like, I don't know if I want to get up and go and get the glass of water. Am I really that thirsty? And so those two things, just staying where I am and going to get a thing of water, are situated somewhere in the hierarchy of the thing that I want to do next with my life, like immediately next. Now, there's not just getting a glass of water and sitting here. There's also getting up and putting a pizza in the oven. There's getting up and getting some juice instead of water. Or there's getting up and going for a run right now, right? Like, there's infinite possible things that I could be doing. And every second of every day, my brain is organizing every possible thing I could do into a hierarchy. And there's like billions of things I could do at the bottom of the hierarchy that are just really stupid, like stabbing myself in the neck. That's like, there's a billion things like that. Or even just something stupid like, dancing with a broom or kicking the wall. Like, there's a billion different things I could do. There's really an infinite number of things I can do. And there's only a tiny portion at the top that are even like going to be considered. And then at the end of the day, there's only one thing that I can choose. And once I'm finished with that thing, I can move on to something else. But as long as I'm, we're focused on just one moment, I have to make a choice of one thing. So that means, if we're bringing this back to the idea that I talked about in the previous video, human beings have things that we value. And we organize those things into a hierarchy. And we act based on where these things are in the hierarchy. And so the hierarchy is this sort of the mode of organization that we use to create our values. Now, human beings are animals, and so we have animalistic values. And so food, shelter, water, sex, these things are things that are at just the first level of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if these things are not met, then at the top of our hierarchy of importance, of value, we're going to put these things. So let's say I have all my needs, but I haven't eaten in 3 days, then food is going to be at the top of my hierarchy. Maybe I've had all of my other needs met, but I haven't had sex in a long time, right? Then sex is going to be at the top of my hierarchy. So, but once everybody's needs are met, then more advanced needs start to come to the top of the hierarchy. And our hierarchies are constantly shifting around. And when people have have organized their hierarchies similarly, then those people tend to get along, and they create echo chambers where they can start to create a sort of almost like a religion out of it, where they believe that way of living that serves that hierarchy is the best way of living. And so, but we actually have to go through that process before we can even do science. Like, even to do science, we have to put doing science at the top of our hierarchy. And then you have people who do have science at the top of their hierarchy, and they are usually secular atheists, and they have other people who agree with them who have science towards the top of their hierarchy. But it's all nested in a hierarchy of values. So these hierarchies are really something that we can't escape, right? If we go back to this problem of the fact that hierarchies dispossess people who are at the bottom. So if the hierarchy gets they tend to get steep, like how the wealth all goes towards the top, and then people at the bottom have nothing. They tend to become corrupt in that way. And so eventually they can become so top heavy that they just get flipped over, right? There's a revolution of all the poor people or less fortunate people, and they just they go and they murder, or they just steal from the people at the top, right? And that's kind of they're revolting and overthrowing the elites, and that would be like a communist uprising. But then oftentimes what happens after a communist uprising is that everybody dies because there's no hierarchy at all, and you need the hierarchy. For example, if you have farmers, right? Not every farmer is going to be equally as productive, right? There's a hierarchy of farmers, and some are the best and some are the worst. And that's something that's a good thing, because you want the best farmers to do the best. You want them to make the most money, because those are the farmers you want, because that's your food supply, right? Now, even if it's something like electronics, right? Like, it's actually a good thing that Apple makes billions of dollars, because we get iPhones. If there was no incentive, then there would be no iPhone. So we do have to be careful about hierarchies, but we can't get rid of them completely. Otherwise, there's no, why even, forget about incentives. Why even do anything, right? Why, Steve Jobs making the iPhone was at the top of his hierarchy of things that he wanted to do. You have to have a hierarchy to even move to make any decision. For me to even get up and get a glass of water, to starting $1 billion company. And so we all are sort of religious in this way, that we have this hierarchy of values and we act according to it, and then we link up with other people who have similar hierarchies, and then we work together to create sort of this average, this hierarchy that's we manifest this hierarchy that's sort of the average of what everybody's individual hierarchy of values. And the people who are most in line with that are going to be at the top. The people who are the least in line with that in that society, in that religion, in that hierarchy of values, are going to be at the bottom. But that's a hell of a lot better than everybody one man for themselves, right? So there's really you need hierarchies to even have cooperation. Because otherwise it's like everybody's so unique and individual that if they don't organize themselves into hierarchies, it's like everybody's just like, well, my way of doing things is the best, and your way of doing things is, you think your way of doing things is the best, and you think your way of doing things is the best. So why don't we all just try our own individual ways of doing things and see who comes out on top? But if we allow ourselves, if we humble ourselves and take a lower spot in the hierarchy, then we can gain synergy. We gain synergy with other human beings. But we have to do that. We can't just say, well, everybody's way of doing things is exactly the same, because then it's like, well, which one do you do? If they're all equally valuable. No, you have to actually put each person's hierarchy of values into a hierarchy of value hierarchies. Does that make sense? So hierarchies are very important, and they are sort of part of having values. If you're in order to have values, in order to have things that are better than other things, you have to have hierarchies, because you have to rank order every possible thing into a hierarchy in order to determine what your next step is even gonna be. And your brain is constantly doing this. It's actually amazing the degree at which it's capable of doing that, and how quickly it can just discern between things that are not even worth considering doing, things that are worth considering doing, and then things that necessarily need to be done. So hopefully you guys get something good out of this video. Hopefully you learn a little bit more about hierarchies, how they work, and how they are actually necessary for human beings to, or for any animal really, to survive and reproduce and exist in this world. Hierarchies are an actual part of our reality. We are evolved, even though you can't see a hierarchy, we are actually evolved to respond and to cope with the hierarchy. So it's something that we act as if it exists, even though it can't be seen. And so it's almost, it's similar to math, right? And math is very real, even though you can't see math. When we act as if math is real, we can get some pretty amazing things done.